Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pacific Region Forum on Business and Management Communication. I'm Rosalie Tung, Professor of International Business and Associate Director of the Daily Center for International Communication. We're delighted today to have with us Professor Magoroh Maruyama. Professor Maruyama received his PhD from Lund University in Sweden. He has taught international business around the world, including the University of Montpellier in France, National University of Singapore, and Aoyama Gakuin University in Tokyo. In addition, he has served as a consultant to Volvo in Sweden, Michelin in France, Monsanto in the US, NEC in Japan, and OECD, NASA, and the Department of Commerce in the United States. Professor Maruyama speaks and writes in 5 different languages and has authored 180 articles, 2 books, and 2 books. He originated several theories, including the second cybernetics, mindscape theory, interactive heterogenistics, and heterogram analysis. In recognition for his contributions, he has been elected as a Fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science and a Fellow of the American Psychological Association. Today, Professor Maruyama will speak about Futurogenic Management. Professor Maruyama's presentation will be followed by a question and answer period. I'll turn to
answers. I'm not for Mr. Yagonash came. You know him. Yeah, I was just introducing. Okay. So, I would like to know first your own background. I mean, in terms of either the past work or the future, whatever dream or whatever you'd like to do. So, which side should we start? Maybe you, this side.
Oh.
Yeah.
When I grow up, I want to be, you know what, in a year and a half from now,
Yeah.
I'll have to make up my mind what I want to do when I grow up. So,
Okay.
that's when I can retire.
Very good point, very good.
I'm an academic with 1 foot in the classroom and 1 foot on the pavement.
Yeah, you might not understand why this retirement is important, because you don't have to do politics anymore after you retire. A big advantage. You don't have to go to the committee meetings, all kinds of politics. And you can say anything you want, and you don't get fired after you retire. Okay, so yes.
Thank you, Professor. I'm trying to figure out how to take politics and intercultural relationships and make them accessible to people using manga or comic books, so that it becomes less hierarchical and less elitist.
And you might or might not know, he is the greatest manga artist and then other art just as well of Haida tribe, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. And you are with. Okay. So congratulations for the babies. And I hear the baby's voice on your tape recorded telephone. Okay. And Rosalie, everybody knows Rosalie, right?
what would you like me to say?
I don't know.
What I would like to be?
Well, before Philadelphia, what did you do? I mean, that's the part I don't know.
Okay, before Philadelphia, what did I do? Well, I guess what I'd always wanted when I was growing up was to be something that was different from what everybody else was like.
I see. Good, very good point, because I'm always kind of trying to hear somebody did something different. And that's what you did, right? Good. So what's that different thing?
Well, even when I was doing my undergraduate program, I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I just know that I didn't want to go into a traditional women's field. That's all. So then I turned to business administration, and I felt that I quite liked it.
By the way, Rosalie is an artist. Chinese brush painting, that's what it is?
Just starting.
That's terrific. Okay, so next, please. What university?
It's not free.
Oh, Simon Fraser.
And my major is international business.
International business.
Yes.
Okay. Have you done anything different from other people?
Well, the biggest difference from here, maybe I'm the non-immigrant from China, and I thought that the system I received from China is quite different from here.
I see.
The background also.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm just starting a PhD program here at Simon Fraser, studying innovation and business strategy. Before that, I was an investment banker, and I guess before that, I spent some time studying cognitive neuroscience.
What?
Cognitive neuroscience, looking at brain structures responsible for learning and
I see.
memory.
And you're a professor.
I am. I study.
Everybody knows.
Everybody knows. Can I say something about myself?
Can we hear your side of the story?
Because I'm a professor, I like to talk. So I study as you know, I study cross-cultural interactions in business settings from a psychological perspective. But I'm also becoming multicultural myself because I have 3 passports. So that's how I'm becoming, within myself, becoming multicultural.
I see. So you're collecting passports.
I'm collecting passports.
Thank you.
I'm Carol, so I don't know anybody here. I have a small new media company called Electric Living Productions, and I'm just very interested in aspects of the future and their real life applications.
Are you an engineer?
Not at all. I'm an artist.
An artist?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
What kind of art?
Digital art?
The computer?
Yeah.
The graphics?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
This is the techie at the David Lamb Center. Anything goes wrong with your computer, you look for him.
Oh, I see. I see.
My name is Magoroh, and I have just started, not just, actually almost a year ago, so time flies very quickly. I've just started my career as assistant professor at the IB division. I don't know how we're called, division, section, but with the Faculty of Business Administration. I'm originally Bulgarian, and I've been moving west. I first moved to Prague, then to the East Coast, now I moved to the West Coast, so I don't know where I'm going to end up with that sort of circular motion. And unfortunately, I'm not an artist. I very much wish I could be, but it's not backed up by talent, so I try to appreciate art as much as I can.
I see. And what would you like to do in the future?
I would like to keep doing what I'm doing, actually. I really like what I'm doing, but if I can find more time to see if I can develop more of my artistic abilities, which are really, really very small, that would be great. But no, I think I'm very comfortable where I am right now.
Okay. So next.
Oh, I'm off-campus.
Huh?
I'm off-campus artist.
Oh, you're an artist. Oh,
Yes.
that's
I mean a culinary artist. I'm a cook. I do desserts and pastries at the hotel in Vancouver.
I see. I see. Very interesting. And you.
Oh, well, unlike Professor Tong, sorry, did I get your name right?
Yes.
Yeah. My ambition when I was younger was actually quite conventional. I wanted to teach. Teach.
Teach. Oh.
Yes, I wanted to spend my life in academia and teach and do research. But I guess it's a number of factors all conspire that, as it turns out, I never did embark on that path. And I ended up doing something I had absolutely no interest to do when I was younger. In fact, when I was younger, at that time, I was what is called a bookworm, nowadays called a geek, and I still am. And as to the future, I am very much in agreement with Professor Walls that in a couple of years when I grow up, I'll decide what I want.
What, if you want to teach, what level are you going to be?
In some kind of scientific field.
Yeah, starting from kindergarten to.
No, in a post-secondary institution. Research and teach, so it would be in the university environment.
Thank you. You're a professor too, right?
Yes, I am. Hemant Merchant. I'm the IB group at Simon Fraser University, and I've been here for about 10 some years. I had never asked myself what I want to be until you raised the question. But when you posed the question, the answer came very quickly. The answer is that I would like to be a child. A child. Yeah, I have 2 young children, and I see things, I try to see things from their perspective. And it's a very different perspective, something that we somehow lose or tend to lose as we grow older. And what I'd like to do is to come back full circle to their world, start seeing things their way, most of their, free of biases and prejudices and those kind of things. Simple needs, simple living, give a M&M and life is heaven. That would be good.
Thank you.
I'm living my life exactly the way I want to. And I'm combining my life as an avant-garde sculptor, inventor of puzzles, and now as a scholar of culture, and integrating semiotics and art and culture into my own understanding of unified theory.
You said sculpture?
I'm a sculptor, yes.
Oh, good.
I'm an inventor of toys and games.
Brother, how did you collect so many artists? It's just an accident.
Well, I think Edith has those.
Okay. Is she an artist?
Pardon?
Is Edith an artist?
Oh, no.
We'll have to ask her, right?
No, she's a very competent program assistant and very proud mommy.
I'm also artist.
Artist?
I'm also artist. So I'm now very happy about my own.
Very good. So, now I have some picture. Nobody in electronics, right? Basically,
I think we have one more.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
You're in electronics.
Yeah.
What do you do? Engineering?
Well, no. Well, I'll give a little spiel. I felt a bit left out. My name's Adrian. I'm currently working as a benefits collector for HRDC, which means I'm unemployed. I was a sales rep for 7 years for a number of high-tech companies. My degree was computer science with a specialisation in, at the time, what they're calling artificial intelligence. And I'm with some of the people in here because I don't want to grow up. The problem with adults is they've forgotten what it's like to be kids. So the reason I'm here, I guess, is to find out more about what's going on in the future, possibly in my field. And also to find out what you do with organisations who don't want to progress as quickly as they could because they want to stick with what they've got and make profit off it.
No, your artificial intelligence work, did you make robots or what did you do?
No. This was back in 1989. So back then it was all paper-based stuff. It was neural networks and that kind of mapping of how decisions might be made if we could get some software that might do the job.
Okay, now, so we have a very interesting mix of people here. Now I proposed, or at least I proposed 2 or 3 things, and Rosalie said I should do the Futurogenic Management. So what does that mean? It means business activity is an invention or a new kind of management, whatever that changes, which changes society, the future, okay? A lot of people are trying to predict the future, and I think that's no good. The future is something that you make, not something that just sit and predict, okay, and wait. So then I said I'm going to give 2 or 3 examples, and an example in many ways might fit your interest, and that is the idea of actually brain activities. Okay, the electric instruments that measure the brain activities. Okay, the more specifically called magnetic resonance imaging. Okay, and now it has progressed to the point that you're not just measuring single neurons, but it's measuring how different parts of brain lights up at the same time. So you can see the whole pattern and using as a stimuli, not just dots or anything of that sort, but rather a music harmonic progression. Does everybody know music harmonic progression, what it is? Or should I explain? Explain? Harmony, you know that usually the basic harmony has got 3 tones. Do you know that one? And harmonic progression is a succession of different, the 3 tones, basically it's 3, but sometimes 7 or 9, called chord, C-H-O-R-D, okay? So the chords have certain sequences, and that gives a kind of a color, and that's called harmonic progression. And the brain is, an interesting thing is that a German musician and a psychologist at the same time arranged to have different sequences of harmonic chords and see how the brain would react to that. And very interestingly, of course, the music composers very carefully organize that. But people who don't have any music education would nevertheless feel, oh, that's beautiful, or whatever. You know, just the brain reacts in very different ways to different successions of harmony. So now we are not really talking about just one point moving, or that's an old-fashioned, old-time brain measurement. Now we are talking about harmonic. Each harmonic chord has got 3 tones, and then that's going in sequence, in different sequences, and then the brain is responding very differently. So we are getting into a very complicated situation called a Gestalt kind of brain activity, not just a single neuron reacting to a single point. So that's being the case. So what's the application of it? And I can see a great deal of application there. What I have been finding before the magnetic resonance is by the case studies and the psychological testing is that individuals have very different cognitive patterns, cognitive, cogitative patterns. And they organize not only their art, but also daily life, social activities, according to what I call the mindscapes. That is kind of this whole complex mind. I couldn't just say perceptual, cognitive, cogitative, behavioral. That's too long, and I simply said mindscapes. That's much simpler. So now the mindscapes are getting to be shown on the computer screen with colors. Now, before, nobody paid attention. I mean, the psychologists, sociologists, they're averaging every individual. So philosophers are saying everybody has the same logic. But now, on the computer screen, you can see that individuals have very, very different brain activities for the same kind of impression you get. So what's the application of it? The most important application is, or rather important market, or the biggest money-making market from business point of view, is to produce less expensive, and let me tell you, the machines we got now are there for the hospitals, for the people who got brain injuries or get poisoning in the brain, that kind of thing, the accidents in the brain or whatever. Those are the people being tested now, and then the machines are huge and very heavy and expensive, and the person who is being measured must stay still without any moving. And that's not very practical. We want to find out children interacting, somebody like the children, people interacting, and then what goes on this interactive people. You cannot have this huge machine where people are just staying motionless. So the idea is to have that's completely feasible, technologically feasible, kind of a helmet to wear. but you cannot mount this whole magnet and all big stuff on the helmet. So what I'm going to do? The idea is to put all the heavy components on the walls of the room and magnetize the whole room. And there are two magnetic fields. One is what is called a DC, or direct current field, which provides a kind of reference magnetic field. Field, do you understand field? Gravitational field, magnetic field. It's not where the flowers are. It's a technical term for this room. The whole room can be magnetized, and that's a magnetic field. Okay, so one is a DC, the direct current field, and the other one is a alternating current, AC field, to produce the resonance. And so there are two sets of fields, and each needs a huge transformer or a huge magnet, magnets, or maybe rectifiers in some cases to convert AC to DC, or the motor to run a DC current out of the AC. And those are very, very heavy. So put them on the walls, not on the machine. And then the helmet would detect the brain output, by that we measure the brain activities, okay, and transmit it. And of course, the head is moving around, so you have to use a computer to compensate for the movements of the head and position angle. That is completely feasible. Nobody has made one yet, but technically, all the elements are there. I mean, all the principles are there. It's quite possible. And then if you have kids or adults or even monkeys or whatever, the little babies wearing this helmet, and you measure the activities, then the mind patterns can be recognized. Then the point is, until now, the schools were teaching basically the same way, the method, the same mindscape kind. But since about 50 years, or exactly 50 years, I would say 1953, Gray Water published a book called The Living Brain. The brain patterns, the way the brains work are quite different. So then the education system must gear to the brain function pattern of each child or each student to be more effective. And if you don't do that, and I call it a civil rights violation, because kids are taught it by the wrong method, and it's no good. Some people are visual, okay? Some people learn by touching things. Some people learn by just listening. Some people learn by experimenting things, okay? And those are very different methods of learning or teaching or expressing. And that, to optimize it, you'd have to match the teaching method to the brain patterns of children. And some people can learn very fast with mangas that you're making, okay? And some people are still reading alphabets. Someone is reading Chinese characters or whatever. That's a very, very different input. So that market, how big is it? All grammar schools, all high schools, college also. So how many people are using it, this little helmet? That's a huge market. It does not exist yet. You have to first create the machine and market it, demonstrate it. Then that's going to change the society very basically, because education system has got to be changed. And then many other things have to be changed, like business companies, employing people, and some people's brain patterns are not used well, and that's a waste of human resources. And then also some people are forced to work in a certain way or think in a certain way, do the mental activities in a certain way, and that's a psychological pain, psychological cost to the individual. So the individuals are losing, organizations are losing, okay? So, am I going too fast? Any questions at this point? Because it's important, even if you don't understand the technology of it, important to understand its implication to education or art or whatever. Yes?
Yeah, I got a couple of things I could think of. First of all, you talked about mindscapes.
Yeah.
That you can tell from the results of the MRI. When you talk about when you talk about those mindscapes,
yeah.
Does that show an individual's mood, or does that just show their attitude on a given day?
No, it's not mood. It's not. It's a cognitive patterns.
So like cognitive style, their sort of style.
I don't know whether you call it style or whatever, cognitive whatever. Okay. Yeah. The way the brain functions. It's not an emotion.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? It's very important.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If students are learning only according to their cognitive pattern, let's say this did occur.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that limit their exposure to other ways of learning, and then as the brain develops, it might develop other ways of...
Well, but okay, so that questions is a good question, but right now everybody is forced to learn in one way, and so that's a big disadvantage we got now. And after that, you might learn 100 different ways. The same guy, same person can learn 100 different ways. That's next step. Yes.
Okay. So if I understand what it measures now.
Yeah.
I think. But it sounds like what you're talking about. My experience of academia was you showed up on the first day, you did the meet and greet stuff, you got down to the bulk of the course,
yeah.
And then you started learning the material.
Yeah.
There wasn't any point where there was any kind of evaluation method, electronic like the MRI or otherwise, where when you arrived at an institution, the lecturers or whoever was taking the course sat you down and said, okay, let's run you through some tests. Let's figure out how you learn best, and let's teach you in that style.
Yeah.
Why would the MRI technique be any better than any other evaluation technique? It isn't part of
okay, it's so you say why don't you use other tests rather than okay. The until now the oldest like Greywater used EEG, that's electroencephalograph. Are you familiar with that one? And it's still used because it's cheaper, it's lighter, and it's portable. Whereas this magnetic resonance machine is so heavy, too expensive. Not many schools have that. And then until this magnetic resonance machine came along, I was using psychological tests. Okay, and that was already showing in psychological tests. The magnetic resonance machines are really confirming what I have been doing in psychological tests and also case studies.
Right, okay.
Okay, and then that has much more convincing power to people. You know, you want to convince people that that exists, and until now, not many people thought that different cognitive patterns existed.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, understood. Got you.
Got it now?
Yeah.
Got the point? Okay, that's a very good, yes.
Can you just go over a little bit of the study showing that a different MRI pattern really correlates with a different learning pattern? Can you just go over some of the evidence?
The learning part hasn't been done yet, but the experiment by Kirsch, that he is a musician and also a scientist. He gave several harmonic progressions, okay? And now, should I explain more about harmonic progressions? If you want to know? No? And then, of course, composers compose those harmonic progressions very, very carefully, okay? But people who don't know anything about how composers made it, they can still think, well, that's strange, or that's not, the brains light up in very different ways, okay? And to tie that to say, how do you learn from hands or reading textbooks? A lot has to be done in the future. Okay. So it's a new field, and the machine has a big market, but also with a machine you can do much more research in the future. Now, so the educational applications and engineering, are you in a position to do anything about it, designing that yourself or anything?
I'm a sales rep. I haven't got a clue what anybody's talking about.
So if somebody made it, you can sell, right?
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand. Is part of what I'm trying to understand. But yeah, if somebody made it, as you say, there's a market for it.
Yeah.
My reservation at the moment is that there's no testing of any kind. So that's the stumbling block to overcome in terms of market entry. But yeah, I can see the market application.
Okay. Now, right now, 3 companies are making those big machines. Hey, yeah, go.
Well, I guess my question would be, assuming that there are these different patterns and
Yep.
the different patterns associated with different types of learning styles,
Yeah.
And that's been proven conclusively with the fMRI studies,
Yeah.
why would you then need to have an fMRI in a classroom when you could, since a
Oh,
student
okay.
goes in, you provide a kind of paper test which is correlated with the fMRI,
Yeah, that.
a very cheap kind of metric, as opposed to these fMRI machines that have
Yeah.
cost millions of dollars.
Well, the investment is probably that the magnetize the whole room would be a lot of investment. Okay? And the helmets, when it got mass produced and the mass marketed, the cost will come down. You know, the first one will be very expensive. Okay?
But even so, if you could find, for instance, correlations between certain paper-based tests.
Oh yeah, I mean you can.
And these different brain patterns. Why would there be a market for the machine in a million classrooms around the world?
Okay, the paper, I've been doing this paper testing, okay? It takes 1 hour or 2 to give 42 patterns as a visual stimuli. Takes 1 hour, maybe more. Case studies take days and years, okay? And magnetic resonance, you can show it almost instantly on the computer, okay? And you're not going to do the case study of each child at the school. That's too expensive, too time consuming. But if you can show it in the magnetic resonance machine, and that's much faster, okay? So that's answer. You can still use it. I mean, I'm not prohibiting anybody to use it as a psychological test or anything, but it's just turns out to be more time consuming, and in the long run it's more expensive because it takes so much time. So any other questions?
So,
Yeah, please.
So do you envision, let me see if I get your vision of the future right,
Yeah.
because I'm a professor, and I
Yeah.
walk into classrooms all the time,
Yeah.
and I have these bright young faces out there, eager for knowledge,
Mhm.
right? And I have no idea what sort of learning styles or cognitive styles
Yeah.
any of these students have.
Yeah.
Is your vision of the future that they're going to sit in my special classroom with these helmets on, and on my screen up there, I can see whether or not I'm getting through to these?
Yeah, well, you don't have to do it every hour to do it, you know. I mean, you can do it once in a while to see which way of teaching is better for which kind of student. I mean, you know, it's like you're getting the blood pressure. You don't do that every day. I mean, you get your blood pressure once in a while. You know, that's an X-ray for the chest, whether you have tuberculosis or whatever. You don't have to do it every day. Okay? Yeah.
In order to follow up on Dave's question, let's say even in a class of 20,
Yeah.
let's say these MRI scans tell me that there are, let's say, 10 different cognitive patterns among my 20 students.
Yeah.
And assuming that these cognitive patterns are quite different,
Yeah.
I mean, how do I cater my style of teaching to, let's say, 10 different groups?
Yeah, okay. You cannot speak 5 different ways at the same time, right? And that's impossible. How to organize the classes? That's another question. Should you have for 3 different classes to teach the same subject matter. I don't know what a good solution for that one. But some people learn much faster with the computer graphics. Other people learn by reading. That's that much you probably know. So maybe there might be different ways of teaching. Right now, one problem is that if a big class requires all those requirements, everybody has a prerequisite. You have to take this management number 1 or whatever the course number, and there are 5 teachers to teach. And if 5 teachers don't teach the same way, students say, "Well, this guy is more difficult," or whatever complaints. So everybody has to teach in the same way, use the same textbooks. Okay, so that's the way things are run now. And I think that's going in the wrong direction, even if that might create a picture of equality or fairness or whatever. So that's why the education system has to change. The whole idea of education system is going to have a change, and that's a big change. And then by inventing this machine, you are changing the education system. And that's what I mean. A little invention like this can change the whole society. And that's what I call futurogenic. You're not predicting the future, you're creating your future. Okay? Now, any more discussion on this? And I can give you a few other examples. I mean, that's one of the examples. So let me give you another example. Indoor agriculture. Well, let's see. Is there any more closer example? But indoor agriculture is not very far because Canada might someday discover oil more north of Hudson Bay. I don't know where. Then you're going to have a community. In USA, you have Alaska North Slope oil field. Okay, the Norway has got one offshore in Norway. So they got a little bit of a community going on. And sometimes those people who work there, since oil companies pay a lot of money, they get a lot of money, and then they go to Anchorage and gamble and prostitution or whatever, waste the money. It's not a very good situation. But one of the things is the indoor agriculture. And that not only can be used in Alaska or in northern Canada, but also in outer space. And that's a future thing. And eventually, my idea, maybe a prediction, is that more human beings will be living in outer space than on the Earth. That is maybe after several centuries, because the life is much more convenient and comfortable, and Earth is a horrible place. I mean, compared to, less comfortable. Let me not say horrible, but rather not as comfortable as in living in outer space. I mean, there are lots of beautiful places on the Earth that, the islands around here, it's pretty nice. It's not a horrible place. So, how does that indoor agriculture work? It started in Japan, not because of outer space, but because of the agriculture policy failure, bureaucracy, subsidizing. After the Second World War, the industry started growing in Japan. And then Japan government thought that that's going to take all the labor from agriculture to the industry. And so some people must stay in agriculture. So the government devised a lot of subsidies for agriculture. Some of them are quite ridiculous. Like if you have what I call a pig hotel, that is to say a pig house, okay, where pigs live, and use a computer, automatically clean it every so many hours, and temperature is regulated, and humidity is regulated. So nice, clean, comfortable pig house, a pig hotel. Then you get government money. And that kind of stupid. And then the pigs got sick because that's not normal for pigs to live like that. And we had the same story from Denmark. The government's technocrats, without understanding the biology, made similar mistakes in Denmark. So that's how the Japanese agriculture got very expensive because of those stupid subsidies which cost a lot of money. And also, government thought the farmers should mechanize to be more efficient and buy tractors and stuff like that, subsidized tractors. So the agriculture price went up. And actually, tractors are not very good in Japan because the landscape, there are lots of hills and so forth, and then each farmer has got one piece here, another piece of land there to have diversified harvest. So agriculture got so expensive in Japan, and they were not importing any. So what happened was, some people got an idea, well, let's do indoor agriculture, okay? And indoor agriculture is basically this. In any room, in any cheap building, no windows, nothing, you just install this agriculture, and there's no ground, no soil, just racks, and vegetables grown, the roots don't go to soil, it just hangs in the air, and then you spray the roots with a fertilizer, okay? And then there are no insects, so you don't use insecticide, no weeds, so no herbicide, and then you can control temperature and humidity, and the things can grow very fast, okay? And then it's completely independent of the season, winter or summer, it doesn't matter. And then that got to be competitive with the outside agriculture. So the outside agriculture was so expensive. So that's the origin of it, but payoff, or rather the side benefit of that, is that now that technology is quite useful in outer space or Northrop in Alaska, where it's very cold, or Norway. And so there is a point in developing this indoor agriculture. In the long future, it's going to be very, very useful in Canada. It doesn't cost very much to do it, at least to start experimenting with this one and make it a more competitive industry out of the indoor agriculture. Of course, Canada still have got a lot of southern part of Canada. You can have outdoor agriculture pretty well, wheats, whatever. But some parts of northern parts, you don't have it much. And then, what do you need? Another cost and benefit and expenses to do that. Basically, indoor agriculture needs energy, solar energy or whatever energy. In Norway, you got water energy because of the mountain and snow. And then electricity is very cheap in Norway, and vegetables are very expensive in Norway. So it's a completely logical solution for the vegetable problems in Norway, using very cheap electricity, okay? So that's another idea. If you are interested in agriculture, that's what I'm throwing. The market is it's not for everybody and every country, but there are markets. Outer space is a big market in the future, next century maybe. And then the operating costs, R&D costs, operating costs, we have to think about it. The agriculture thing, basically everything is run by electricity, the indoor agriculture. So you got to have electricity one way or the other. But that electricity bill won't be as big as say car manufacturing factory, because we are not really talking about a very strong power. You're just talking about regulating temperature, just artificial sunshine, not much electricity. Okay, so any reaction to that one? So now, from management point of view, how do you encourage futurogenic management? Okay, so that's a management problem or a management question. And I'll give you two examples. One example is wristwatch, and that everybody has. And the Swiss used to be the best watchmakers, okay, for many centuries maybe. And then suddenly one day, a Japanese company called Seiko won the competition, and that kind of made Swiss panic. And that a Neuchâtel competition, the competition was cancelled in subsequent years because Swiss was so embarrassed. Okay. Now, how did you make this kind of a surprising invention? And actually, the inventions occur by interaction among heterogeneous elements. It's not by isolated individuals. At the time of Thomas Edison, maybe he could just do his experiment himself. But so let me explain how this wristwatch business went. The idea was Seiko was the first one to use the electronic oscillators in the watch. Okay, instead of pendulum that was a traditional thing, or the wheels that go like pendulum inside the watch, the Seiko was the one to use electronics. And how to do that? The electronics, everybody has a radio, right? Or television. The radio waves, okay? And they have frequencies, so you have to tune into the channel or the station. And tuning is accomplished by very selective method of wavelength, okay? And but the traditional tuning, can this thing go up a little bit more? The older way to tune the frequency was, this is just a technical drawing of it. This is called a capacitor. Basically two plates, and the positive and negative will kind of have a pushing effect or attracting effect. And so the capacitor will hold electrons, okay? And then this is a coil. And the work is pretty much electron swing like this between capacitor and a coil. But the problem was the capacitor will change the value of capacitance, that is the amount of the electrons that it holds, according to temperature, okay? And old radios used still vacuum tubes rather than transistors, so they heat up and change temperature. Or we had some abnormal weather. Sometimes the weather goes too hot or too cold, then they change the capacitance so that it will go out of tune. So another idea was to use crystals as a resonant circuit, which will keep the frequency much more stably than those old arrangement capacitors and the coil. And either you change the capacitors, so you might have seen older radios, the capacitors kind of go like this to change the capacitors, or coil in which you stick the rod in and out to change the inductance. Instead of that, you have just crystal, which will just act like this one, and it doesn't depend on temperature, much more stable. So the idea is how to put this crystals inside a wristwatch. Okay, the first crystal oscillator clock wasn't a watch yet. It was very heavy and bulky because of all the old system. To do this one, you need 300 volts. To make 300 volts, you have to have a transformer and a rectifier, and everything is so heavy. And you are using vacuum tubes a long time ago, and then the vacuum tube will heat up, and so you have to have a space to cool it. And so the first watch, not the watch, but clock, was so heavy, you had to transport it on the pickup truck. Okay, so how can you make a little one like this? So the idea was use the crystals. That's one idea. Another was to put parts. You see, this is a very old Timex watch that mechanical, completely mechanical, no electronics, and then the things swing inside. But then you have to put first of all the crystal oscillator in it, and quartz that was used for the radio engineering cannot fit in this, but you have to fit it. So how to do it? Cut the quartz in a zigzag way, so the one little piece is cut in zigzag, so it's like a big crystal. Okay, but the quartz people couldn't do it, so the idea is to get diamond people to do it. So you have to combine quartz people and diamond people. And the second idea was to put all these wheels, how to put it. So you have to kind of put the swinging parts separate and put between the components, which the Swiss people couldn't do it, because the Swiss people had subcontractors to make all those parts. So you cannot really put parts apart and squeeze into space. So that's why in 1967, first wristwatch using the crystal oscillator with time accuracy has the Seiko product has beaten the Swiss. So Swiss panicked. Okay, so but how could they do it? The Seiko could do it by combining different experts, the quartz people with diamond people, and other people to do this mechanical parts. So that's an interactive invention. Okay, another kind of interactive invention is a so-called bullet train that Mr. Yaguranashi just tried it a few days ago, right? At the bullet train from Tokyo to Kyoto, yeah. That was also a product of an interactive invention. The idea was, the history was the following. During the Second World War, have you heard of Zero Fighter? That was much before you were born. The Japanese fighters, the airplanes, that was very good at that time. But it had a problem. In flight, the swings, the wings will go like this and then break off, okay? And that's because of the spontaneous resonant vibration. Now, if some of you are musicians, okay, so you have a tuning fork, you know that one, you kind of fork like this and hit it and make a certain sound. And if you have the same frequency, then the fork will start vibrating, right? So that's a spontaneous resonance vibration, So what happened to the airplane was just flying in the air, but somewhat it starts moving a little bit, and then that created like this swing effect and the resonance of wing. And nothing is wrong with the air, but it's at a certain speed the wing will just fall off. So the aircraft engineers knew the idea, the phenomena of a spontaneous vibration, the resonant vibration. Now, railway engineers, they were thinking, well, the derailing, which occurred more and more when the trains started running faster and faster than the relay. So they said, well, the derailing, the only reason for that is a crooked rail. So if you straighten up the rail, there will be no derailing. And so aircraft engineers and railway engineers got together, not by accident, but by design. The design was the following. After the Second World War, of course, the Japanese Navy and the Army, they disappeared, right? So the people in the Navy and Army, the militaries will have no jobs after that. Now, in Europe, there are lots of jobs after the war because of the stone buildings. And to clear up the stone buildings, you needed laborers. But in Japan, the houses burned, so no job for that. So there's one genius at the railway Ministry of Railway at the time said, well, look, all those engineers are going to get jobless. So let's collect them. Someday they're going to be useful. So this railway minister collected the engineers from Navy, the aircraft engineers, okay? And indeed it turned out the trains got faster and faster, and then there was a big argument between the rail engineers and aircraft engineers, and the railway engineers insisted it must be the crooked rail. But aircraft engineers said, okay, so let's do the experiments. The experiments for the railway people was to build a model track, the little one, the random little trains. Aircraft engineers had an entirely different idea. They had a wind tunnel concept. That is, wind blows, and then the airplane stays, right? So the idea was that to have a train staying and the rail kind of blowing or turning. So they mounted the rail on the huge round thing, and then put the rail around and then spin it, okay? So you have this now running rail and the train staying still, and it was very easy to control whether the rails are crooked or not that way. And indeed, at a certain definite speed, the train will vibrate. And after you pass that speed, the train will stay still. So that's resonance, okay? So that resonance suppression technology was used for the bullet train. So the aircraft engineering, the vibration engineering got into the railway. So that's, again, the combination of different kinds of people and heterogeneous experts. Now, the question is how to manage that sort of invention. There are some ways to do it. One is, the best way is job rotation that everybody probably heard about in the international business. The job rotation, let me compare the Volvo factory and the Nissan factory, Volvo factory in Sweden, and the Nissan factory in Yokohama, Japan. I saw both of them, and I saw huge differences. In Volvo factory, there are job rotations. For what? How? There were three purposes of job rotations in Volvo factory assembly lines. One is for the muscles. If you're doing like this for a long time, you get tired. So change that, do it this way, after 1 hour or two. Or maybe you're looking at the computer all the time, your eyes get tired, so you rotate somewhere else. So the fatigue was one reason. Another reason was human replacement possibilities, human spare part. If somebody gets sick, somebody else might have to do the job. And if each person has several kinds of trainings, then you have a human spare part. So you job rotate to educate the spare parts. And another reason was just simply it's too monotonous to do the same thing all the time. So rotate it maybe every 3 hours from one spot to another, or several spots. So the reasons are all physical, maybe one psychological, that's boredom. So that was the Volvo main factory. And in Opama factory in Japan, I looked at it. And some other places, I mean, let me say not looked at it, because you cannot look at it just one time. Because in Japanese factories, you have job rotations. And Koike pointed out there are as many as 40 job rotations in some companies. So what's the purpose of it? Is this for the muscles or eyes or what? For one thing, the most important reason is to feel mental connection in Japanese factories. You might have some comments on it. And those people who have been job rotated understand one another because they have been rotated. So that's a mental connection or mental whatever it is. And share the responsibility. They feel kind of not to maximize the local efficiency of one spot, but to maximize the efficiency of the whole system, which those might be two different things, the local maximization and the system maximization. So the mental connection was very important. And then also the feeling of joint response. Now in the Volvo factory, what was happening was, say the assembly line is moving, every 2 minutes, one body comes. After 2 minutes, another body comes. And you have 5 different things to do during that time. And after you finish 5 different things, the Volvo people, during that spare time, so to speak, they did basically 2 things. One was to read books, kind of cheap fiction. They know how many lines to read until next car comes, okay? Well, some ladies knitted. You make how many knots, and the next car comes. And at one time, the Volvo management prohibited that, book reading and knitting, saying that people are going to forget. But actually, after they prohibited it, things went chaos. Because people couldn't time themselves, okay? So that was another management problem. Now, in Nissan factory, what I saw, those people don't have books or the knitting, but they kept looking over and over many times. And not only their mistake, but mistakes made by somebody else upstream. And that's how they spend time. And now, if you know the car factory, assembly lines, what happens nowadays is that it's all computerized. And then you have one car to go to France, another car, next one goes to China, and next goes to somewhere else. For the French cars, I mean, for the cars that are going to France, you have to have yellow headlights. And for the cars that are going to England, you have the steering wheel on the other side. That sort of variations, but they have to be all sequenced by the computer, okay? And then the parts, here's a body assembly line, and then here's the doors that come, and here's headlights come, So if one car has to be taken out to be sent back to where the error was made, then all the parts, the sidelines, they have to be adjusted just as well. It's very expensive, very complicated, but that's how the Volvo people did it when I saw it. I don't know what they do now, but that's how it was before, okay? So that's another management question or problem. And so a good thing to do is job rotation, and not just as a human spare part, but filling the the overlapping responsibility. But in some countries, you cannot do job rotations because of the union rules. Like a secretary in England cannot change electric bulbs. You have to call an electrician, you know. And a manager cannot sweep the floor because that belongs to the sweeping people. And if you do that, you're taking away the jobs from the sweeping people. You know, that's sort of a bureaucracy. So how do you do job rotation where you cannot do it legally? So there's, my idea is to have a quasi-rotation. And what's quasi-rotation? It's a temporary assignment rather than official job rotation, okay, like just to overcome this union rules, and also salary differentials. In Japan, there's not much salary differentials between different specialists. It doesn't matter, but in Europe, like in England, there's a huge salary difference between different specialists, okay? So in quasi-rotation, your salary is paid from the home department, say, okay? But you spend so many hours or so many weeks at another spot, or many more spots. So that's quasi-rotation. So that's the management part of it. And basically the job rotation is good, very beneficial from that point of view. The management has to be adjusted. And another idea is to have contact opportunities between different specialists, particularly between the engineers and some other people, repairmen or whoever it is. The idea is to have some mixing possibilities of specialists, like cafeteria, whatever it is. And most of the engineers, they are very poor at writing reports. They can explain things by moving, drawing pictures, okay? And so if a company says, well, okay, the engineers write reports and send it to the assembly people, I say that forget about it, because engineers don't write reports, basically. So the better communication is by more direct contact, okay? And how do you create that opportunity? That's a big problem, really. Not so easy to solve. So there are many management questions and problems there too, but then basically the job rotation or quasi-rotation is a very beneficial thing to do. Now, any questions so far? No? No, yes?
Yeah. Well, you said any questions, so there's a couple of things.
Yeah, sure.
You most recently talked about different things management could do, as opposed to different products that we could try and approach to move things forward.
Yeah.
One of the things I've found frustrating to date in my short career is the fact that management as a whole will often stick rigidly to old ideas.
Yes.
And even if you can start to demonstrate some sort of return on investment from trying a new way, it's really difficult to embrace these new ideas. So I understand what you're saying. And then the other problem as well, that kind of ties in, for me at least a bit, is the shareholders.
What is?
Is the shareholders, the people who kind of drive where the company's going.
Oh.
This ties more into the product-related one.
Okay.
For example, in the example of the MRI stuff, you said that, which one is it, Siemens and various
Siemens,
yeah. Already have the big room MRIs that are used in hospitals.
Yeah.
They have the technology to make the smaller ones, which should have more applications. But both management and shareholders, I'm guessing, are going to look at that and say, well, look, we've got another 10 years of making 50 million a year from these big room size ones. If we introduce the smaller ones now, that takes away 10 years of 50 million a year because that will start to eat up sales. So both in terms of benevolently moving forward to new technologies and in terms of moving management forward to try new, always better practices, what kind of things can you do to try and move them? Because it doesn't even seem like an ROI statement is always...
You're saying two things. One is big company problem. The other one is saying the management resistance. That's two very important problems. The management, any place, a business or a school management, typical academic management, the same way, they inbreed a lot. They're just inbreeding machines. And any strange idea, any outside ideas pushed away because of the inbreeding. Okay, so that inbreeding is one problem. Another problem is a big company problem. That big companies are very slow to move because they have already investment, this or that. So the small startups can move much faster. And so I don't know whether you have small startups here, but that's a possibility. You can make your own company. might work. So there are management problems in that. So how about the management expert? Would you say anything about this inbreeding problem and the big company not moving fast enough?
Inbreeding flies in the face of the conventional wisdom of the virtues of diversity. You don't get diversity through inbreeding, right?
You get more and more, less diversity.
I would object to it in principle, but I'm not a management expert.
Oh, I see.
Chinese poetry expert.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, but who is a management expert? There are 4 professors altogether. Rosary and 2 professors there. Just what did you say?
Well, I like the statement that you made earlier on, and you've been following through on it. Is the idea of interaction of heterogeneous elements creates innovation, right? But the practical problem, some of which are being expressed here, is that people who are different often don't get along very well with the other people who aren't like them. So getting heterogeneous elements to interact effectively is a big issue. It's a big management problem, regardless of the organizational situation or the context of it. So I think part of the issue is, and the issue that I'm most concerned with, is how to get individuals or groups who are quite different from each other, have different skills, different knowledge, different everything, to effectively interact to create these innovations that you see. I'm still on the helmet.
Okay.
Great. That you see in the future.
Yeah, that's what I suggested, job rotation and the quasi-rotation. And then there has to be some incentive, okay? You can say, well, you can job rotate if you want to, and says, well, look, that's too much trouble, I stay here, okay? So how to create the incentive? Maybe bonus, I don't know, some kind of incentive has to be there. That should be created by the management.
Job rotation is not possible for all tasks. Okay, I mean I could understand when you're talking about mass assembly lines, some type of rotation is possible. But let's say you cannot put me to work with in the field of nuclear physicists if I'm not trained in that particular area. It's also so how do you job rotate?
To medicine, like you're trying to interact with the medicine people.
Or if I were to try to perform their task, I think it would be.
Oh I see. I see. Like a medical laboratory kind of job, how they rotate as a artist, for example, to the medical laboratory. Oh, that's not so easy.
Just maybe talk a little bit about that one, because I understand what you're saying, and I had this pitched to me. As a sales rep, I got asked to do a week in marketing. And I thought, well, why the hell do I want to work in marketing? I'm a sales rep. I don't care about these people. Well, somebody pointed out that not only is sales and marketing pretty much synonymous, but I'm the other end of their mechanism. guys in marketing expect to see feedback from the field, and vice versa. So I agree with your point on like medical stuff. The only reason I jumped in on that was like the gentleman here said, getting heterogeneous elements together can be very difficult. I learned from that experience I had then that it's really, really unwise to resist that new experience of being forced somewhere you're not comfortable. But everybody is, because most people's first reaction is, well, I won't be able to do that, how could I do it? The point I'm trying to make is I agree with what you're saying, but I still agree it's difficult to do, as is evidence there.
Okay. Now, one of the things that you said was sales and marketing, right? You can extend that to upstream and downstream. That is, upstream is maybe R&D, and then you got the production, and then you got sales and so forth. That's up, or repairman, say that, after service repair. And that up-down rotation is very, very useful for our R&D people to know the repair work. Very, very useful, okay? And marketing people to know the repair work, that's useful too, right? And so how do you do that? And Japanese companies do that all the time, and so you get a lot of resistance in North America. Somewhat, Chicanos or the Mexican Americans have less resistance to the job rotation. They're like GM what is Ford, Fremont, California. A lot of Mexican kind of people are more congenial to the job rotation. So there can be some kind of background there too. Any other comments, discussions?
Could that one of the reasons for that possibly be because the workforce in Mexico is more accustomed to obeying managerial directions and authoritarian management, and if they say there's going to be a rotation, you don't question it?
Another might be the family system or something of that sort. There's huge extended family, yeah, and then they kind of interact. Yeah, that might be the case. Yeah, I mean, I haven't done the research on that particular aspect of it, so I cannot say. Oh, I might mention about this Volvo factory. I mean, there are many things that if you're doing some project in some factory, so you find a lot of other things. There are many foreigners. It used to be, at least. I mean, they needed the foreigners in Volvo factories. Now they got unemployment rate, so they don't take any more. But the point is, some foreigners preferred to be in little cliques, each ethnic or whatever the cliques, okay? And others preferred to get mixed. So they learn something, language or whatever. And then another point is what I call migration due to mindscape matching, or the full mindscape matching. Like some Danes prefer to work in Volvo factory in Sweden, and some Swedes prefer to work in some Danish factory. It's because of the individual mindscape types, which will match where best, okay? So the migration might be looked at that way. It's not just labor force, it's mindscape matching very often. And in fact, among intellectuals, it's more mindscape matching than the labor force. Okay. Now, here's a time limit. You have some schedule, right? So let's finish. I'm supposed to finish at 3:30 because of other schedules. So thanks for your attention. And now, if you have any good ideas, just let me know, because I'm always looking for good ideas or new ideas. Crazy ideas, basically. The crazy is not bad, because among 10 crazy ideas, maybe some might be good. I don't know until you try it.
I'd like to entertain questions or comments from the, we don't have to close up shop right at 3:30.
Yeah, but
I want to make sure we.
but there is something that's scheduled for, that's the way I understand it.
Oh.
So I better take this one before I forget.
Well, I think there's 5 more minutes if you'd like.
Sure, that's another good 5 minutes. Yep.
Yeah.
Questions or comments from anyone?
No, I have one comment to make. I don't know how to turn it off, but it's okay. Education system, higher education, particularly getting worse and worse, at least in California. They're putting more and more requirements, and students are busier and busier to fill requirements, and they have no time to think. And I don't know whether Canada has got the same problem. Those PhD students, they cannot think. They just fill requirements. And then it's getting more and more like a factory because of so many requirements. It's kind of mechanical in a way. It's all prescribed. And I see that to be a very basic weakness of higher education in California, at least. Some private schools on the east coast of USA might not do that, but at least the public schools in California, it's getting, for me, it looks to me, it's getting more and more hopeless and going in the wrong direction. And they might say it's budget, but it's too many students, but it's not just the number of students, it's just the way you put a priority on the whole concept of education. Yeah.
Well, maybe we can have job rotation amongst courses, classes, moving students around between different disciplines.
Yeah, that happens, but then that has to be according to the what we call interdisciplinary program, schedule. And then those interdisciplinary programs are pretty bad because there is nothing interdisciplinary. It's just a collection of very unrelated things, which for some reason is called interdisciplinary. And people are not relating anything, they're just collecting the informations. And then another point of education is that a lot of times education is understood or at least interpreted as information transmission. And for me, education is to develop abilities, not to follow prescribed steps. Abilities not to follow prescribed steps. And that is not done in higher education in California. Everybody is following, and everybody is expecting to have step 1, 2, 3, 4 all written down. You follow it, that kind of like a factory.
But if you're going to base, if a faculty member is required to base their judgment of that student's achievements upon criteria, the students are going to be tested based upon criteria.
That's right.
And the students will demand that the faculty tell me what are the criteria because I want to get an A on the test.
Yes. And my way
It's responding to market demand.
My way to give grades to students is not like there are 5 things to do and then he gets 80%, here 70%. I don't do that way. If a student does something fantastically good in any of the aspects, I give 300 points. And you can use this extra to just cover the course some other place. So I value that extra 300 points more than some deficiencies somewhere. So there are some ways to just divide your grading system. And fortunately, when I taught in Japan, nobody complained because Japanese professors are kind of left pretty much without interference with other people. Every professor can do anything. And some professors do nothing. Or repeat same thing for 20 years. Nobody complains. And in fact, I got a faculty meeting sometimes, so-and-so is supposed to be promoted from assistant to associate or whatever, the next higher rank. And then I said, well, look, all this junk here, I didn't say junk. Or even the PhD dissertations, what I call taking somebody's model and do you understand the Japanese pejorative? Put a little hair on it, okay? And then look at this little hair with a microscope, and that's not a PhD dissertation. So the fellow is, why? How do you know? We are the committee, the other fellow. So I had more problem with those damn PhD committees than students. So anyway, that's one of the
What you just said reminds me of the evaluation I've heard that a specialist is someone who learns more and more about less and less until eventually they know almost everything about practically nothing.
Yeah, that might be, but some people just don't do either.
Second thing, that you've made me think about something that now and then something stimulates me to get back to this. But this is it's a Japanese principle called Kisho Tenketsu, which explains order, departure from order, and reintegration into the after the challenge to the order. In musicology, the principle is called tempo rubato. Tempo being the beat, rubato, stolen, which means that in musicology, if you create a beat, you must have repetition. Okay, but wait a minute, this gets boring. So you have to depart, but you have to come back to it, or at least it deteriorates into chaos. So you have to have both repetition and departure.
Compare Stravinsky's Southern Symphony with African bats singing simultaneously with different rhythms in the morning. Go to Africa and then listen to Stravinsky's Southern Symphony. Then you understand something.
Ouch. I wanted to leave you with a memento of your visit. In here you will find a coveted Simon Fraser University t-shirt. It's inside a coveted SFU bookstore bag. I want you to think of this and think about coming back. Think about coming back again.
Thank you. I mean, if you have good ideas, I can. But if you just listen, that's no good. I mean, you've got to have some ideas yourself. Okay.
Thank you very much.
I don't come to transmit information. I try to your new ideas.
Yeah, and we're the beneficiaries of that. Our next scheduled forum is on November the 21st. Professor Oncho Ing will be addressing us on rethinking Confucianism, Asian values, and the global ethics of human rights and responsibilities. Okay. He comes from Penn State University.
Make sure we first can.
Yeah.